neutrality to nothing. I saw your mind as you ran through my prison. You have fought machines and gods. They were mighty. They were finite. I am infinite.
The end. This is the little purple moon boss from Sonic Frontiers. First of all, the end isn't even that cool. I'm gonna be honest with you guys, the end is not even the coolest moon in the Sonic franchise. First of all, this moon from Sonic Adventure 2 is way more cooler and way more fire. No, pun intended, like it's actually more fire than this stupid purple ball that you fight at the end of Sonic Frontiers. Like, man, this was such an underwhelming, like, looking boss. Listen, the monologue was raw, don't get me wrong, but to sit here and say that this final little circle was supposed to be like death incarnate or whatever, after getting really like a ginormous build-up, was a pretty big letdown. But reps from Sega, in particular the people that actually write Sonic Frontiers or contributed to the writing, Ian Flynn, just chimed in about an Easter egg from Sonic Superstars, which has people debating the final boss in Sonic Frontiers. Sonic fans are now, once again, at each other's throats, of course, and people are mad. So let's get into the discourse, but before we do that, please subscribe to the channel with all notifications right now. I'll give you a second. And please drop a like and also drop a comment down below. Contribute to the discussion so the word gets out. So who is the End? The End is the final boss of Sonic Frontiers, the person that essentially manipulates Sonic all throughout Sonic Frontiers. He needs to destroy the Titans, tear down the walls between dimensions, and then he can save his friends because he's the key. All throughout the game, the End is actually basically on your team. It's pretty much like your tutorial guide throughout the story, and it's going to tell you how to use your power-ups and stuff like that, where you got to go. It's basically guiding Sonic throughout. He needs to save his friends, so who else is he going to listen to? It's been pretty obvious throughout the story that obviously this thing was going to betray you, and they definitely foreshadow that throughout the campaign. You will get slow drip bits of information throughout lengthy gameplay tasks. So you get little bits and pieces for the entire duration of while you play Sonic Frontiers. Although for me, I was so damn confused by the end of the game when I saw the giant moon, I lost it. I'm like, dude, what the hell is this, bro? So who's the End? Little is known about the End's past, but tens of thousands of years ago, it traversed through the universe that Sonic lives in, and it destroyed countless stars and planets, which consequently led many civilizations and planets to their doom. The Coco kind of foreshadowed this, as these are the spirits of the ancients that fell to the End. Eventually, the End came to the Ancients' planet and destroyed it, which caused the Ancients to flee to Earth. Eventually, the End found its way towards the Earth to destroy it. However, this time, it was met by a resistance from the Ancients who fought it with their Titans. And throughout the story, you will actually see through flashbacks how these events play out. While simultaneously throughout the story, Sonic and his ghost friends are suffering through cyber corruption. Despite the Ancients' best efforts, the End was able to overpower them, so in a desperate attempt to stop it from destroying the world, the Ancients bound the End with their Titans and sealed it within cyberspace to imprison it and prevent it from destroying the Earth. So in Frontiers, you know how we're running around cyberspace and how Sonic has the ability to travel freely between cyberspace and the regular world. This is where the End is imprisoned. The more Sonic runs through cyberspace, which he needs to get the keys to get the Chaos Emeralds, he gets exposed to cyber corruption, which actually grants him a new technique each time. Sonic eventually overcomes it with the power of friendship, which is probably the worst part of the story, which eventually gets fixed. Once Sonic breaks the final seal, the End escapes cyberspace and takes control of the Titan it was bound in there with, which was Supreme, and threatens to destroy the Earth. Sonic becomes Supersonic, defeats Supreme, and the End escapes into space to reveal its true form, which is a giant purple moon. What people love about the End was that it was a malicious entity and its only desire was to destroy civilizations and consume worlds. The fact that it was able to manipulate Sonic, and a very lengthy monologue about how the End represents death itself and that it's infinite and that nobody can escape the End no matter if it's defeated, made everyone forget that it's a giant purple rock. And the final boss was the stupidest, most goofy thing ever. Any threat that I thought that this thing had, minus the scary monologue, yes, it was cool, but at the end of the day, like, this is what we had to deal with in the final boss. It was so lame. Sega actually came out a couple months later and clarified, you know, why it's a stupid purple rock, and maybe took back why it looks so stupid, but you would never actually know this unless you were on Sonic Twitter. They said that the End never actually showed its true appearance in the game, and this is because the End's appearance varies from person to person, serving as a visual representation of what they perceive death itself to look like. Listen, if you think Dr. Eggman without a mustache is actually what death itself looks like, well, guess what? That's what the End actually is. This probably led a lot of people to think that this boss was a lot cooler than it actually was, and I will agree with most of the sentiment of the discourse that we're going to get into, saying that this boss was missed potential, which I totally agree with. And to Sonic Team's credit, I think that once they improve the actual set where you fight the end, because if you compare it to the Galactica shooting stage, it really minimizes how cool the boss could be. But when you're fighting him in the Supreme Arena in Sonic Frontiers Update 3, you really get to see the size and scope of how big this boss is, and you get a lot more direct conflict that you actually feel. You feel the size of how big this enemy is, so he's definitely redeemed, and I'm actually satisfied with the conclusion of Frontiers with Sonic Frontiers Update 3. But at the same time, it's hard for me to take the purple rock seriously. Yes, he had a cool monologue. They definitely improved how threatening it looks in Sonic Frontiers Update 3, but you know what they say, a first impression is definitely extremely important. And our first impression with this boss was not that great. There's a bunch of fan art out there that kind of highlights what the boss could look like. I'll make sure to show their DeviantArt. This is just me like checking it out real quick. Like if the end actually looked like this, like if this was kind of what it looked like, I don't know, maybe I think I'd like it more. But yeah, I do agree with the fan base's sentiment about how there's missed potential, and let's get into that sentiment and get into the actual discourse. Catch you up to speed, if you played Sonic Superstars, I'm actually playing right now. Oh my god, do you see that little moon in the top left corner? Right? Oh my god, I'm dead. Okay, I'm dead. All right, here's the best shot right here. If you look right here in this top right corner, like this clearly is the end, whether or not they say it's the end, or you know what I mean? Like this is obviously like the same model, like it's the same picture, okay? But yeah, again, if you look right here, like that clearly looks exactly like the end from Sonic Frontiers. Whether or not it's actually canonically the end, I mean, clearly, technically, canon-wise, no, it's not the end. It's at least an Easter egg or something like that. Oh my god, Sonic died again. So the big hiccup about this theory actually comes right here. If you look in the corner right below this little Eggman Sun thing, see where my mouse is, that right there also looks like another version of the end. It looks exactly the same. To me, it's just like a clever Easter egg, you know, by the developer. Nothing more, nothing less, right? Nope. New developments by Ian Flynn and Sega on Twitter, or X, whatever you want to call it, now shed some light and context into this matter. So everyone thought that this was the end, but here's a tweet by Ian Flynn which set off the discourse, and this is not like what the discourse is fixated on. The discourse goes well beyond this, because there's a couple of extra statements he makes which throws everybody into array. Ian Flynn says everyone is losing their minds over the purple one. So he's talking about the little purple moon right here, which everyone thought was the end. And then he says nobody's talking about the blue one. I don't know if that means something else. I mean, this is the end, or someone on Twitter said this is the beginning. I was dying at that. But he says it's not the end. It can't be. Relax. Okay, that makes sense. I mean, if you ask me, it's definitely an Easter egg. Obviously, like within the confines of the story, yes, it's not the end because the end was trapped in cyberspace. So the discourse keeps going, all right? So it's not the end, whatever. I think it's the same model. I'm pretty sure it's a picture of the end. I think it's an Easter egg, but who cares? It doesn't matter. Don't come in the comments saying, blah, 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 blah. I don't care, all right? I don't care. And this person tweeted, technically the end does exist in the classic era, right? I still believe that this era is the past. I mean, of course it's not free, but does it exist? And he says, yes, it's still sealed away in the classic era, same as Shadow and Mephiles and Iblis and Dark Gaia and Chip and Chaos and T-Call. And as you can see, a lot of people were set off. You know, a lot of people are just chiming in on the discourse. There's a lot of, look, it keeps going. It keeps going. There's a lot of stuff going on here. I'm not going to go over everything, but look at that. Lots of people talking, but wait, this post was actually deleted by author. This is the one that really sets in to the true discourse surrounding the nature of the end. What the original poster said before they deleted it, I actually saw it. It was something to the effect of like the end says that they're infinite and like they're this big omnipresent representation of death and stuff like that. So does that mean like the end is going to return in a future Sonic game? I'm gonna be honest, I don't want that Goofy to return. It's heavily implied that the end is going to return. He said it's blown up, gone. So the end has actually ended. So this person said the original story did imply that it was merely gathering strength by the time Sonic and Sage fought it, and it rambled for 6 minutes about how defeating that incarnation wouldn't do anything, that it would be back, especially after Sonic made it personal like the ancients before. And this is kind of what set people off as well about the end. Ian Flynn said it was boasting. I thought the malevolent arrogance was self-evident. It's gone regardless of ending. So update 3 ending or just the original ending. Which one's canon, by the way? We don't know. And this is what set off the discourse of the Sonic fan base. So everyone is basically realizing that the end was a fraud. He had a lot of potential. You know, a lot of people think about, when you think about a villain with wasted potential, they might think about Infinite from Sonic Forces, although I'll say this. Here's some more lore for you if you guys didn't know. The end is, according to Ian Flynn, the second strongest enemy that Sonic has ever faced. The strongest actually being Solaris, who is from Sonic 06, which actually took 3 Super Hedgehogs in order to be in the past, present, and future. So is the fan base correct about this? We'll get into more of their takes, but is the end actually a fraud? Well, I mean, if you consider like the new ending of the game, it took Super Sonic literally transforming into a brand new form, upgrading himself. Like they literally had to upgrade Super Sonic supersonic in order to defeat this boss, whereas no other final boss in the series required this. Before you come at me talking about hypersonic, listen, I don't want to hear it. He's dead, all right? He's never coming back, okay? So I think if we're power scaling this alone, I would say that the end is still probably the second strongest. I mean, I don't know how strong Supersonic 2 is compared to 3 Super Hedgehogs or Solaris. I mean, I don't know specifically, but just by default, you need a powered up Supersonic to defeat this. As a matter of fact, we needed a brand new corrupted Cyber Supersonic 2 in order to actually defeat the end. Plus the help of Eggman, Sage, Tails, Knuckles, Amy. I would say in terms of power scaling, there's no contradiction for the end being the second most powerful villain that Sonic's ever faced. This person says, well, that sucks. They could have done something amazing with the end, but it was all just for show. That really sucks. Biggest fraud in the series. They always have a cool concept and never run with it. I hate Sonic sometimes. So the end is literally just a worse Sonic villain then. Here's a take I can kind of get down with. This guy says, I'm being so dead ass. Why are y'all complaining about this? No way you really wanted the Purple Rock as a villain to unironically return. Like, yeah, I can get behind that. This person says, I'm sick and calls the end the fraud. Basically, bro was just yapping. Like, he was, that's all he was doing, bro. He was yapping. Everyone's basically saying the end's a fraud. It's wasted potential. There's a lot of back and forth, but don't worry. Ian Flynn had one last thing to say about this that kind of claps back a little bit. This person actually has a pretty good take. They say, are people who mad not aware that bringing the end back would undermine what the overall ending meant? The point of Cybersonic is that Sonic is using the power of the ancients in order to help them all finally find peace knowing that they were avenged. And to that, Ian Flynn responded, thank you. Got people saying that that's pretty underwhelming. Literally any other god or godlike entity in the Sonic franchise never made a comeback, and the end not coming back is underwhelming. Literal Timekeeper, Sun God, God of Darkness, an immortal alien, and more never came back. I don't know. Just felt like the end fulfilled its purpose. And this person said, to be fair, that's exactly because it wasn't common in the Sonic series to have villains coming back, that this idea of the end having multiple incarnations was interesting. So here's my take on the situation. I'm like, all right, the end was missed potential. That's true. But we didn't think this when we saw the Purple Rock and it was the Galactica shooting minigame. Like, wasn't that enough to be like, okay, this boss had a lot of missed potential? Update 3 aside, which I think improves a lot of this. Like, the story of Sonic Frontiers felt really, really flat at the end for me personally when you consider the original ending of the game. But personally for me, like, I never thought this boss was gonna come back. So I think the feeling that everyone's feeling right now, I already felt like when the game dropped. So maybe new statements kind of just made everyone realize this just a little bit too late. Everyone took those extra details, I think, about what the end looks like and the monologue maybe a little bit too far and overanalyzed. I personally don't really care about the Purple Rock. Maybe if the boss looked a little bit scarier, like I said, update 3 improves this, which leaves me satisfied with the conclusion. So it's kind of a mixed bag. So I don't care about it coming back, but yes, it was missed potential. But what do you guys think about this?